This is a headdress for Mahana Dance Company. You're going to gather all of your materials as seen in these photos. Mother of pearl shells, cowrie shells, brown, and also the white, red feathers, orange feathers. I'll be making a list of all the supplies. Velcro, bias tape, hot glue, glue gun, measuring tape, weaved pandanus, and we will be making this headdress here. The lauhala or the pandanus, you want to get a large roll of that, and you also want to get your orange feathers, and you want to prep those by getting the lining or the bias tape. You can make your own out of cotton material. And as you can see here, I've sewn it on. This keeps it together better. You're going to get this off-white burlap fabric, which I got at Walmart, and also this bias tape, an extra wide double fold. And you're going to create the lining in the front of the headdress by using this burlap. You're going to cut it out, and you're going to fold it in and then pin it, and then do that and repeat that pattern. Once you pin everything, then you're going to be sewing it on the bottom to keep it together. And just check the headdress to measure it and make sure you have the correct measurement for that. And then you're going to get the bias tape and sew that along the very bottom. That's going to secure it because the burlap fabric is not a tight weave and it comes apart easily. So to make it more secure, I like to add the bias tape along the bottom. And it also cleans it up and makes it look really nice. Also, I like to pre-prep everything. So this is what I'm doing right now, is pre-prepping, so that once I put the headdress together, all of this stuff will be finished, and it just makes everything run smoothly. And then we're ready to create the base that goes around the head, which is made from the lauhala or pandanus. And then you're going to put something on the inside to keep it strong. So some kind of belting. This particular belting you can get at any kind of fabric store or downtown LA is where I do get that. And you're going to measure the Velcro as well, usually about 4.5 inches for the length. And this is going to keep it strong by adding the belting on the inside layer of the pendennis. So then once I finish those, then I'll leave those, set those aside, and then I'm going to make the pattern for the actual headdress. So it's going to be 14 inches tall, 12 inches width. And once you cut out the pattern out of the poster board, you're also going to cut out the lauhala and also the felt into the same shape. So it's very important to have the poster board as your main pattern, so that then you can trace it on to everything else. And the felt is going to be sewn on the back of the lauhala base. You're going to cut out 2 of each because you need the front and the back. So 2 lauhala, 2 of the felt pieces. That's going to hold it together and make it stronger when you sew into it. And then also 1 piece of the, what is it called? It's like a macrame plastic. But again, I will make a list of everything. So as you can see here, I'm basically cutting out the pattern for the lauhala. And then here is the orange feathers being sewn onto the back of the front piece of the headdress. So this is basically the front of the headdress, but I'll make sure the orange feathers are sewn behind it. So if that makes sense. And don't forget to sew on this fabric to the back of the lauhala for the head, for both the front and the back of the headpiece pattern. So again, this is the felt, and before you sew on the feathers, you're going to do this part, just as a reminder. Okay, so we've got the pendennis here for the headdress. It's cut out, it's been sewn with the felt in the back. And then what I'm going to do next is get the feathers, which is on the outer layer. I've already prepped these with the orange lining here, which I got fabric, 100% cotton fabric, and I ironed it and then sewn it on, and that just kind of holds it together better. So then what we're going to do is get the feathers, face them forward. So this is going to be the front of the headdress. You want to make sure the feathers are facing kind of like facing forward like this instead of back. Otherwise the feathers are going to kind of go back if you have them backwards. But you want them to kind of frill forward. So yeah, if that makes sense. And then you're going to basically line it up with the top of the lining would go to the edge right here, and you're going to sew right basically here. And you're always going to go back just to hold the make sure it's sewn well. And then yeah, you're just going to sew along the edge, and you're going to go all the way around. So also making sure that your fingers are not in the way when you're sewing. So make sure that they're on the side actually. And then just take your time when you sew, and just make sure that your line is as straight as possible. Okay. So after you've pinned down the red, you're basically going to glue it down here or sew it. Either hand sew it or machine sew. So after you have glued this or sew it, this one is sewn on, but this one is glued on, and it's gonna come down about here. Then you're going to add that, which is hand sewn. It's about right there to the edge, and then you're gonna hand sew this as well. And then I'm just placing these to see how they fit. Aloha, good morning. The next step is to add this part to the front of the headdress. So you're going to pin that on first, and then you're going to hand sew it starting from the bottom and then all the way around. And just use a white, very kind of thick, I use Coats and Clark upholstery thread. So yeah, that's really great for sewing. As you can see in the back, we have this part here, and that kind of like makes it strong, so you can sew right through that. So once you finish that, then the next part is going to be doing the lining. All right. The next part is you're going to get some yellow feathers. It's kind of a golden yellow feathers. And then a glue gun. And then basically you're going to glue these in the back of this. But before you do that, you're going to drill holes. So I drilled a hole there, there, and there for the top one. And then I drilled here and here. So these two areas for the bottom, but you want to mark it with a permanent marker in the back first. And then ready to sew those on next. So after you place the shells down and they're drilled to sew through, you're going to kind of like eye it and just see where it looks good. Start with the top and you're going to sew it through. So I've sewed it here, here, and here. Use a thick thread or string. This is 100% cotton. And then you're going to pin these down, place them, and then do the same thing and sew it here and here. Now you can see this is all hand stitched. Ready to put the shells in between now. So I just finished sewing all this part. All the headdresses are getting there. And the next part is to sew these on. The next step is to get your brown cowrie shell after you've glued this in the back, some felt, and then you're going to place them on your headdress and glue them on. And then when you glue it, you're not going to put too much, just right in the center. And then basically you're going to pat it on there lightly, not force it, but just let it sit and kind of fit it to where it needs to go. But you only have one time to fit it, so that's why it's important to place them where you need them. Then also we have these, you have 5 of these feathers for each bundle, and you're going to tie it with a strong string, and you're going to make 3 bundles for each headdress. Then you're going to glue them on into the back. Preferably you want to
place them inside, like underneath this, and it'll stay really strong. Then you put some felt over that with the glue. Right now, you can see all the messiness of the hand sewing and everything, but that's going to be covered at the very end. So next thing is you're going to get the backing for the headdress. After this is added on, sewed on, the felt, then you're going to get a double bias tape in the off-white, and you're going to just fold it over so it's on both sides, and then you're going to sew it along the edge here all the way around. So the next step is we're going to add the backing. Just make sure that it fits, line it up to the bottom, and then we're going to be gluing it on so that nothing can be seen on the side, and that's going to seal everything in.
Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoy creating your own headdress. Mahalo.